The soft blue glow of holographic displays filled the United Planetary Command Center, casting long shadows across the worried faces of Earth's top scientists and military leaders. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the circular room, her dark eyes fixed on the massive star chart that dominated the main screen. Something was wrong, and she could feel it in the deepest part of her scientific intuition. 3 days earlier, long-range sensors had detected an anomalous energy signature at the edge of human-controlled space. It wasn't like anything in their databases, not a natural phenomenon, not a known alien technology, but something entirely different. The outer colony world of New Horizon had gone silent. Its communications abruptly terminated without warning or explanation. "Replay the sensor logs," Alina commanded, her voice cutting through the nervous murmur of the command center. The holographic display shifted, revealing a cascade of data streams and visual representations. Impossibly complex energy patterns danced across the screen, fractal-like structures that seemed to defy the known laws of physics. Each replay revealed more questions than answers. The energy pulse had swept through the New Horizon system with surgical precision, leaving nothing but cosmic dust where an entire human settlement had once existed. Commander Jack Chen approached, his military uniform crisp and his posture tense. "Preliminary analysis," he asked, though he already knew Elena would have the most comprehensive understanding. She turned, revealing a datapad covered in complex calculations and theoretical models. "It's not just an attack," Elena explained, her voice measured but intense. "This is a message, a very specific type of communication designed to do more than destroy. It's meant to communicate intent." The room fell silent. Senior analysts exchanged worried glances, understanding the implications of her statement. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was a calculated demonstration of power. Elena's fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up additional data layers. Star charts, energy signatures, and complex mathematical models began to overlay one another. To most, it would look like incomprehensible chaos. To her, it was a language waiting to be decoded. "The pulse contains a specific informational content," she continued, zooming in on particular energy patterns. "It's not just destructive. It's communicative, like a calling card left behind by something vastly more advanced." Commander Chen leaned in, his military pragmatism warring with scientific curiosity. "Advanced enough to wipe out an entire colony in milliseconds. Advanced enough to do it without even considering us a significant threat," Elena corrected him. Her tone was clinical, but a subtle undercurrent of determination ran beneath her words. As if on cue, additional sensor data began streaming in from the outer colonies. More settlements had gone dark. Not attacked, not destroyed, simply erased. No debris, no radiation signatures, no trace of the massive human infrastructure that had existed moments before. The Planetary Defense Council convened emergency sessions. Speculation ran wild. Theories about alien invasions, dimensional warfare, quantum-level attacks. But Elena knew they were missing something fundamental. Her research into xenorchaeology and advanced communication theories was about to become humanity's most critical defense. The energy patterns weren't just a weapon. They were a form of communication, a message from something that existed beyond human comprehension. "We're being evaluated," Elena murmured, more to herself than to anyone in the room. "Something is studying us, measuring our response." Commander Chen caught her comment. "Evaluated? For what?" Elena's eyes hardened with a mixture of scientific excitement and deep concern. "To determine whether we represent a potential threat or a potential opportunity." The command center hummed with nervous energy. Humanity had always imagined first contact would be dramatic. Massive ships, clear communication, a moment of grand revelation. Instead, they were receiving a message written in the language of pure energy, a communication so advanced it looked like total destruction. and they had mere moments to understand it before whatever sent the message decided on its final judgment. The underground research complex beneath the Andean mountains buzzed with an energy that defied traditional military thinking. Hundreds of the world's most brilliant minds worked in carefully curated teams, each group tackling a different aspect of humanity's most critical challenge. Commander Jack Chen walked through the central hub, his military background clashing with the chaotic creativity surrounding him. Holographic displays flickered with impossible mathematical models. Artists collaborated with quantum physicists. Game designers worked alongside ecological engineers. Traditional hierarchies had been completely dismantled. Dr. Arya Nakamura, a cognitive systems expert with wild blue-streaked hair and eyes that seemed to see multiple dimensions at once, approached Chen. Her tablet displayed a dizzying array of communication patterns and probability matrices. "We're not just preparing for a war," she explained, her voice rapid and excited. "We're designing a completely new form of interaction. The Nexus Collective doesn't understand flexibility. They understand rigid systems, predictable responses. We're going to be fundamentally unpredictable." A nearby team of cultural anthropologists worked with linguistic experts, developing communication strategies that could potentially introduce cognitive dissonance into alien communication systems. They weren't just preparing weapons, they were designing intellectual viruses that could potentially disrupt entire alien thought processes. In another section of the complex, a group of environmental designers created adaptive camouflage systems that went far beyond traditional military concealment. These weren't just visual disguises, but comprehensive ecological mimicry systems that could transform entire spacecraft into living, breathing ecosystems that could change at a moment's notice. "Our greatest weapon is our ability to reimagine everything," Elena Rodriguez announced during a strategy briefing. She had been appointed as the primary strategic coordinator, her unique blend of scientific insight and strategic thinking making her the perfect leader for this unprecedented effort. Chen listened carefully as Elena outlined their approach. Traditional military strategies relied on predictable force structures, clear chain of command, and established battle doctrines. Their strategy would be the exact opposite, a living, breathing system of constant adaptation and reimagination. "We're not going to fight like they expect us to fight," Elena explained, her holographic presentation showing complex, fractal-like battle formations. "Every time they think they understand our strategy, we'll change completely. We're going to turn warfare into a form of improvisational art." The most extraordinary team worked in a sealed chamber, developing what they called quantum communication matrices. These weren't traditional communication systems, but living, evolving networks that could change their fundamental communication protocols in microseconds. If successful, they would create a communication system so dynamic that it would be impossible to predict or intercept. Psychological warfare teams developed strategies that went beyond traditional military thinking. They studied alien communication patterns, looking for potential cognitive vulnerabilities. How do you introduce doubt into a species that believes in absolute certainty? How do you create communication strategies that challenge fundamental belief systems? Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, Elena's brother and a brilliant neurological engineer, led a team developing adaptive neural interfaces. Their goal was to create communication systems that could instantly adapt to different cognitive frameworks. They weren't just designing technological solutions, they were exploring the very nature of interspecies communication. "We're not preparing to fight," Marcus told a group of skeptical military advisors. "We're preparing to communicate in a way no species has ever communicated before. Our weapon is understanding. Our defense is adaptability." The complex represented humanity's most ambitious project. Every traditional boundary had been removed. Artists worked alongside mathematicians. Military strategists collaborated with poets. Ecological designers shared ideas with quantum physicists. Commander Chen watched a group of street performers working with communication theorists, creating adaptive language models that could potentially introduce completely new conceptual frameworks. A nearby team of video game designers developed complex simulation models that could predict potential alien response patterns. As the weeks passed, something extraordinary began to emerge. It wasn't a military strategy in the traditional sense. It was a living, breathing system of potential responses, a network so complex and adaptive that it defied traditional understanding of warfare, communication, and interaction. Humanity was preparing not just to defend itself, but to fundamentally challenge the entire concept of conflict. The impossible was becoming possible, one impossible idea at a time. The Epsilon Eridani system glimmered with an eerie stillness. Massive asteroid fields drifted in complex orbital patterns, their surfaces catching the distant starlight. To any outside observer, it might have seemed like a peaceful cosmic landscape. But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing. Commander Jack Chen stood on the bridge of the UPS Horizon, his hand steady on the quantum interface controls. Around him, the ship's crew moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional military training. They were more like a living organism than a traditional military unit. "Incoming signature detected," announced Lieutenant Zora Okoye, her fingers dancing across multiple holographic displays. "Nexus Collective Fleet approaching. Preliminary scan shows 47 primary vessels with multiple support craft." The tactical display erupted with a complex web of potential movement trajectories. But these weren't standard battle plans. Each potential path was a living, breathing possibility, a quantum probability map that could shift in milliseconds. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice came through the communication channel, her tone calm and analytical. "Remember, this isn't about destruction. This is about communication. Every movement is a language we're about to speak." The Nexus Collective's fleet approached with mathematical precision. Their vessels were perfect geometric shapes, obsidian-like structures that seemed to absorb light, moving in perfectly synchronized patterns. They represented the pinnacle of technological predictability, each ship moving with algorithmic certainty. What they didn't realize was that humanity had turned predictability into a weapon. "Initiating quantum camouflage," Chen commanded. The UPS Horizon began to transform, not through traditional cloaking technology, but through something far more complex. Holographic projectors, quantum entanglement systems, and adaptive metamaterials worked in concert. The ship didn't just become invisible. It became impossible to define. One moment, it was a massive battleship. The next, it appeared as a collection of asteroids. Then, it would suddenly resolve into multiple ships that weren't quite where they seemed to be. Each transformation was calculated, each movement a complex mathematical language that challenged the very concept of observation. The Nexus Collective's targeting systems began to fail. Their perfectly designed combat algorithms encountered something they had never experienced: complete uncertainty. Targeting locks would establish, then immediately lose coherence. Ships that should have been in specific locations suddenly weren't. Lieutenant Okoye monitored the quantum probability matrices. "They're attempting to recalibrate," she reported. "But each recalibration is introducing more confusion into their system." Across the asteroid field, other human vessels performed similar transformations. But they weren't acting as individual units. They were a living network, communicating through quantum-entangled systems that made their movements seem almost organic. One ship would momentarily appear, drawing the collective's attention, only to dissolve and have another vessel emerge in a completely unexpected location. "We're not fighting," Elena's voice reminded them. "We're speaking a language they've never heard before." The first Nexus Collective vessels began to fire. Their energy weapons were precise, designed to eliminate targets with surgical accuracy. But each shot passed through where a human ship had been moments before. The very act of observation was becoming impossible. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez monitored the psychological impact from a separate research vessel. "Their communication networks are experiencing cascading confusion," he reported. "Each failed targeting attempt is introducing exponential uncertainty into their collective decision-making process. Entire squadrons of Nexus vessels found themselves firing at phantom targets, their perfect geometric formations beginning to dissolve. For the first time in their documented history, the collective was experiencing something beyond their computational models: genuine uncertainty. Chen watched the tactical display, understanding they were writing a new chapter of interstellar communication. This wasn't just a battle. This was a conversation happening through movement, through quantum possibilities, through the very language of uncertainty. As the first hour of the encounter concluded, the Nexus Collective had lost nearly a third of its invasion force. Not to weapons, not to traditional combat, but to a fundamental challenge of perception. Humanity had just spoken its first words in a language of pure possibility. The research facility hummed with an energy that defied traditional scientific boundaries. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers tracing complex communication patterns that seemed to dance between mathematical precision and pure artistic expression. "We're not just decoding their language," she explained to her team of linguists, mathematicians, and cultural experts. "We're creating a new form of communication that challenges their entire conceptual framework." Dr. Amara Okello, a brilliant linguistic anthropologist, adjusted the quantum resonance filters on her analysis equipment. Her work focused on the subtle nuances of interspecies communication, looking beyond words to the fundamental structures of thought. The team had discovered something extraordinary about the Nexus Collective's communication system. Their language wasn't just a method of exchanging information. It was a rigid, hierarchical structure that left no room for ambiguity or creative interpretation. Each communication was a perfectly structured transmission, designed to convey exact, predetermined meanings. Humanity's approach would be completely different. "Think of it like jazz," Marcus Rodriguez explained, drawing parallels between musical improvisation and communication strategies. "Where they have a rigid orchestral score, we're going to introduce improvisation. Unexpected notes, creative interruptions that challenge their entire understanding of communication." The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A team of performance artists working alongside quantum physicists developed what they called cognitive dissonance matrices, communication patterns designed to introduce subtle uncertainties into the collective's information networks. Their initial tests were subtle but profound. Using quantum-entangled communication systems, they began broadcasting complex information packets that seemed to follow the collective's communication protocols, but contained intentional variations. Each transmission was a carefully crafted puzzle, designed to introduce the smallest seeds of doubt. "It's like speaking their language," Amara explained, "but with an accent that makes them question everything they understand about communication." The team developed multiple layers of communication strategies. Some were direct, carefully constructed messages that followed the collective's linguistic rules but contained logical inconsistencies. Others were more abstract, mathematical sequences that seemed to follow perfect logic but contained imperceptible variations that would cause computational systems to hesitate. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's most brilliant insight was understanding that communication was more than just an exchange of information. It was a complex dance of perception, interpretation, and understanding. "We're not trying to break their communication," she told the team. "We're trying to expand it, to introduce the concept of possibility where they only see certainty." The first real test came when they intercepted a standard Nexus collective communication burst. Instead of trying to translate it directly, the team created a response that was simultaneously a perfect match to their communication protocols and a subtle challenge to their entire conceptual framework. Quantum linguists worked alongside poets, creating transmission packets that were mathematical perfection wrapped in layers of creative ambiguity. Each message was a work of art, a precise scientific instrument disguised as a creative expression. Early results were promising. Nexus collective communication networks began to show minute hesitations. Computational systems that had previously processed information with absolute certainty now displayed microscopic moments of uncertainty. "We're introducing the concept of creativity into a system that has never experienced it," Marcus observed, watching the data streams. Imagine a mathematical system suddenly encountering a solution that doesn't follow its established rules. The team worked around the clock, each transmission a carefully crafted intellectual intervention. They weren't just communicating. They were expanding the very concept of communication. As weeks passed, the changes became more pronounced. Nexus collective communication networks began to show signs of increased complexity. The rigid, hierarchical information structures started to develop unexpected variations. Humanity was teaching an ancient, technologically advanced civilization how to imagine. The language of possibility was becoming real, one carefully constructed transmission at a time. The diplomatic vessel Horizon of Understanding drifted near the edge of a contested star system. Inside, Dr. Elena Rodriguez studied holographic displays, showing the intricate social structures of the smaller species within the Nexus Collective. Each civilization represented a potential connection, a thread that could unravel the massive alien alliance. Commander Jack Chen stood beside her, his military background warring with the delicate diplomatic approach they were about to undertake. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, watching the complex data streams of alien social networks. Elena's smile was both determined and compassionate. "We're not looking to conquer," she explained. "We're looking to understand. Every species has a story, a hope, a dream that's been suppressed." Their first contact came with the Zurax, a species of silicon-based life forms that had been relegated to the lowest tier of the Nexus Collective's hierarchical structure. Centuries of systematic oppression had left them desperate for any alternative to their current existence. The initial communication was delicate. Years of careful linguistic and cultural research had prepared the human diplomatic team for this moment. Dr. Amara Okello, the lead xenolinguist, crafted a message that was simultaneously an invitation, an apology, and a promise of potential. "We see you." The message read in the Zurax's complex crystalline language, not as a resource, not as a tool, but as a civilization with inherent value. The response was not immediate. Days passed as the message was processed through multiple layers of the collective's communication filters. When it finally came, it was unlike anything the human team expected. A single word that translated to something between hope and possibility. Other marginalized species began to take notice. The Mirakel, a telepathic species used primarily for information processing within the collective, reached out through carefully constructed quantum communication channels. Their message was a mixture of fear, curiosity, and a deep-seated desire for self-determination. Commander Chen watched in amazement as diplomatic teams worked in ways that defied traditional military strategy. Artists collaborated with linguists. Ecological experts worked alongside cultural anthropologists. Each approach was a carefully constructed invitation to reimagine existence. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez led a team developing what they called collaborative potential matrices, communication frameworks that demonstrated how different species could work together without losing their unique identities. It was more than diplomacy. It was a fundamental reimagining of interspecies relationships. The Nexus Collective's response was predictably aggressive. Communication channels to the marginalized species were temporarily blocked. Punitive measures were implemented, but something fundamental had changed. Information found ways to flow. Hope, once introduced, cannot be easily contained. Elena discovered the true power of their approach during a breakthrough moment. A series of intercepted communications revealed the deep psychological impact of their strategy. The marginalized species weren't just listening. They were beginning to imagine alternatives. "We're not recruiting an army," Elena explained to her team. "We're awakening potential. Every species has been told what they cannot do. We're showing them what they might do." The diplomatic efforts expanded. Each communication was a careful dance of respect, possibility, and genuine connection. Human teams shared technological insights, but more importantly, they shared stories. Stories of species that had overcome their own limitations. Stories of collaboration, of finding strength in diversity. Some alliances formed quickly. The Zyrax provided critical insights into the collective's communication infrastructure. The Mirakel offered unprecedented understanding of the Alliance's decision-making processes. Each species brought something unique, something the collective had never valued. Commander Chen watched in amazement as traditional military strategies dissolved. This wasn't conquest. This was something far more powerful. As the weeks passed, the Nexus Collective found itself facing something it had never encountered. Not an external threat, but an internal transformation. Small species began to question. Communication networks started to develop unexpected variations. Humanity had introduced the most dangerous concept of all, the possibility of something different. The universe watched, holding its breath, as unexpected alliances began to form. The space between galactic arms stretched like an infinite canvas of darkness and possibility. Commander Jack Chen studied the tactical display, his fingers hovering above the quantum interface controls. What appeared to be a simple fleet formation was actually a living, breathing network of potential and strategy. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's voice came through the communication channel, calm and precise. "This isn't just a battle," she reminded the assembled fleet. "This is our most complex communication yet." Around them, the Allied fleet defied every conventional understanding of military formation. Ships from dozens of previously marginalized species moved with an organic synchronicity that would have been impossible weeks earlier. The Zyrax silicon-based vessels created living communication networks with the telepathic Mirakel support craft. Quantum-entangled communication systems turned the entire fleet into a single, breathing organism. The Nexus Collective approached with their trademark geometric precision. 47 primary vessels formed a perfect fractal pattern, supported by hundreds of smaller craft. Their approach was mathematical perfection, each movement calculated to the smallest quantum probability. They didn't realize that perfection was about to become their greatest weakness. Commander Chen activated the first phase of their strategy. The human vessels began to transform, not through traditional camouflage, but through a complex dance of quantum possibilities. One moment, a ship would appear exactly where the collective's targeting systems predicted. The next, it would resolve in a completely unexpected location. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez monitored the psychological impact from the research vessel. "Their computational systems are beginning to experience cascading uncertainty," he reported. "Each failed prediction is introducing exponential complexity into their decision-making processes." The Allied fleet moved like a living system. Where traditional military strategy would demand rigid formations, these ships created a dynamic network of potential. Communication happened not through standard channels, but through quantum-entangled systems that defied traditional understanding of information transfer. A squadron of Mirakel vessels used their telepathic capabilities to create complex information networks that confused and disrupted the collective's computational systems. The Zyrax ships used their unique silicon-based composition to create adaptive camouflage that went beyond traditional visual concealment. Elena's strategy was becoming clear. This wasn't about destruction. This was about demonstrating a fundamentally different way of existing. The first wave of Nexus collective attacks began. Energy weapons of unprecedented precision lanced out into the space between the stars. But each shot passed through where a ship had been moments before. The very act of observation was becoming impossible. "We're rewriting the language of conflict," Elena explained to the fleet. "Every movement is a sentence. Every formation is a paragraph in a story they've never heard before." Quantum communication systems allowed instantaneous coordination that seemed to defy the basic laws of physics. Ships would appear to be in multiple locations simultaneously, their very existence a challenge to traditional understanding of space and time. The collective's perfect geometric formations began to dissolve. Their computational systems, designed for absolute certainty, encountered something they had never experienced: genuine uncertainty. Commander Chen watched the tactical display, understanding they were creating something beyond a traditional battle. This was a conversation happening through movement, through quantum possibilities, through the very language of potential. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez's team tracked the psychological impact in real time. The collective's communication networks were experiencing unprecedented disruption. Each failed targeting attempt introduced more complexity, more uncertainty into their decision-making processes. Hours passed. The battle became a complex dance of possibility. The Allied fleet wasn't trying to destroy the collective. They were trying to communicate a fundamental truth, that certainty is an illusion, that potential is the truest form of existence. As the encounter concluded, the Nexus Collective had lost nearly two-thirds of its invasion force. Not to weapons, not to traditional combat, but to a fundamental challenge of perception. Humanity and its new allies had just spoken a language of pure possibility. The universe listened, and everything changed. The aftermath of the battle was unlike anything in galactic history. As the quantum dust settled, Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the research vessel, watching the complex communication networks that had emerged from the conflict. The Nexus Collective's leadership had not been destroyed. Instead, something far more profound had occurred. Their entire conceptual framework was crumbling from within. Commander Jack Chen approached Elena, his military uniform slightly disheveled. "We didn't win by force," he observed, more of a statement than a question. Elena's smile was compassionate and complex. "We won by showing them a different way of existing," she replied. The holographic displays around them showed the intricate communication patterns that had emerged during the conflict, a living, breathing network of possibilities that defied traditional understanding. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez began presenting the psychological analysis to the assembled leadership. Data streams revealed how the human approach had fundamentally challenged the collective's understanding of conflict, communication, and potential. "They're experiencing what we might call a collective existential crisis," Marcus explained. The displays showed cascading information patterns, communication networks that were breaking down and rebuilding themselves in real time. The marginalized species that had joined the human-led alliance were crucial to understanding what was happening. The Xyrax representatives presented intricate data models showing how the conflict had introduced fundamental changes to the collective's decision-making processes. A Mirakel diplomat, its telepathic communication translated through complex quantum interfaces, shared a profound insight. "You did not defeat us," the message read. "You showed us the possibility of defeat is not the same as destruction." Elena understood the deeper meaning. Humanity had not sought to eliminate the Nexus Collective. They had offered an alternative, a way of existing that valued potential over control, creativity over certainty. The diplomatic teams worked tirelessly in the following weeks. Every communication was a carefully constructed invitation to reimagine their existence. They shared technological insights, but more importantly, they shared stories of species that had overcome their own limitations. Commander Chen watched in amazement as traditional concepts of victory dissolved. This was not conquest. This was transformation. The collective's leadership began to fragment. Some sought to maintain their old hierarchical structures. Others became increasingly curious about the alternative being presented. The marginalized species, long suppressed, began to find their voices. Dr. Amara Okello, the lead xenolinguist, developed communication protocols that allowed for unprecedented levels of interspecies dialogue. Each transmission was a carefully crafted bridge between different ways of understanding existence. "We're not asking them to become like us," Elena explained to her team. "We're showing them the possibility of becoming more than what they are." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A group of collective administrators requested a direct dialogue, something unheard of in their 1,000-year history. They wanted to understand how a species could approach conflict with such a fundamentally different perspective. Marcus's psychological analysis revealed the depth of the transformation. The collective was experiencing something akin to a collective awakening. Their computational systems, once rigid and absolute, were developing what could only be described as curiosity. Technological exchanges began, but these were not traditional transfers of information. Each shared insight was a collaborative exploration of potential. The Zyrax shared their unique understanding of quantum stability. The Mirakel offered insights into telepathic communication networks. Humanity offered something more profound. Not a technology, not a weapon, but a way of thinking. A perspective that valued diversity, potential, and the constant possibility of change. As weeks turned into months, the Nexus Collective began to transform. Their hierarchical structures softened. Communication networks became more fluid. The marginalized species found new voices, new possibilities. Elena understood that true victory was not about domination. It was about opening possibilities. The universe watched as something extraordinary unfolded. A civilization was reimagining itself, not through force, but through the simple, powerful act of seeing potential where before there was only certainty. Humanity had done more than win a battle. They had started a conversation that would change everything. The collaborative Galactic Council chambers gleamed with an architectural marvel that celebrated diversity. Delegates from hundreds of species filled the circular room, each represented by technologies and communication methods as unique as their origins. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center, no longer just a human representative, but a symbol of the transformative journey they had all undertaken. The chamber's design reflected their new understanding. No central podium, no hierarchical seating, but a fluid, interconnected space that allowed for multidimensional communication. Commander Jack Chen watched from the sidelines, his military background a distant memory. The concept of conflict had been completely reimagined. Diplomacy was no longer about negotiation, but about collaborative exploration. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez presented the foundational principles of the new galactic organization. "We are not here to create rules," he explained, his holographic presentation shifting with each word. "We are here to create possibilities." The Zyrax representatives demonstrated their unique approach to problem-solving. Their silicon-based communication created living data streams that flowed between delegates, transforming complex information into dynamic, interactive landscapes of understanding. Mirakel telepaths worked alongside quantum communication experts, creating networks of understanding that transcended traditional language barriers. Each species contributed its unique perspective, creating a collaborative intelligence that was far more powerful than any individual civilization. The former Nexus Collective members sat not as conquered participants, but as active contributors. Their computational systems, once rigid and absolute, now pulsed with a newfound sense of curiosity and potential. Elena's opening address captured the essence of their journey. "We did not win by defeating an enemy," she explained. "We won by showing that there are no enemies, only opportunities for understanding." The Council's first major project was ambitious beyond imagination. A galaxy-wide initiative to explore the potential of collaborative scientific research. Species that had been isolated for millennia now shared research, technologies, and philosophical insights. Ecological restoration teams worked alongside quantum physicists. Artists collaborated with mathematical theorists. The boundaries between disciplines, between species, began to dissolve. Dr. Amara Okello led a communication research division that was rewriting the fundamental understanding of interspecies dialogue. They weren't just translating languages. They were creating new ways of understanding. The technological exchanges were profound. The Zyrax shared their insights into quantum stability. The Mirakel offered unprecedented understanding of telepathic communication networks. Humanity contributed something less tangible but equally valuable, a perspective of constant possibility. Planetary restoration projects began. Species that had been marginalized for centuries found themselves at the forefront of collaborative efforts. A planet destroyed became an opportunity for collective reimagining. A technological challenge became a chance for multiple species to contribute their unique perspectives. Commander Chen observed the transformation with a sense of wonder. The military strategies he had once known seemed like relics of a distant, less imaginative time. Conflict resolution had become a form of collaborative art. The first interstellar research station became a symbol of their new approach. No single species owned it. Each contributed, each benefited. It was a living testament to the power of collaborative potential. Educational systems were redesigned. Young beings from different species learned together, their communication methods evolving in real time. Traditional concepts of competition gave way to collaborative exploration. Elena understood that their greatest achievement was not technological. It was a fundamental shift in perspective. They had shown that potential was more powerful than certainty, that diversity was not a challenge to be managed, but a resource to be celebrated. As the first decade of the collaborative Galactic Council concluded, the universe looked different. Boundaries between species became fluid. Communication networks evolved continuously. Each challenge was an opportunity for collective growth. The final report, presented by a diverse team of researchers, captured the essence of their journey. It was not a document of achievements, but a living, evolving exploration of possibility. Humanity had not conquered the universe. They had invited it to reimagine itself, and the universe had accepted the invitation.